I don't remember hitting the floor. I just remember the cold, the sting of tile against my cheek, the quiet after. 1 second, Declan was screaming, waving his arms like a maniac. The next, I was on the kitchen floor, my head ringing and ribs aching like they were cracked from the inside. And Belle, my sister, the person I grew up playing Barbie and hide and seek with, she just stood there, frozen, watching, like she didn't know whose side she was supposed to be on. I blinked up at the ceiling, trying to breathe. Every inhale felt like it was scraping broken glass through my chest. My right eye was already swelling. But worse than the pain was the silence, the absolute suffocating silence. No footsteps running toward me, no cries of, "Oh my God, Camille!" Just Declan's fading footsteps as he stormed out the door. And Belle, turning away like I wasn't even there. I waited, for her to kneel down, for her to say something, anything. But she didn't. Eventually, I heard the front door shut behind him, then the click of Belle's bedroom door like she had simply decided to pretend it didn't happen. I dragged myself up, one arm then the other, wincing with every move. My wrist throbbed, my side screamed, but it was nothing compared to the dull ache in my chest, that familiar heavy thing that had lived there my whole life. The part that said, of course she picked him. I limped to the bathroom and stared at my reflection. My face was red, my eye already turning purple. My lip had a split in the middle. I looked like someone who had been robbed, or maybe mugged. But no, it was worse. I looked like someone who had been forgotten. I heard my phone buzz in the other room. I shuffled back to the couch, still holding my side, and picked it up. One new message, from Belle. "You made this into something it didn't need to be. Please don't contact me again." That was it. No. "Are you okay?" No. "Let's talk." Just instructions to stay away. I stared at her words until they blurred. Then I put the phone down slowly and sat back against the cushions. Something cracked inside me, but not in the way it usually did. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I didn't reach out again hoping for a different version of her. Number? Not this time. This time I saw it clearly. How they all expected me to eat the pain quietly. How I was always the easy one, the one who never made trouble, the one who cleaned up behind everyone else's messes. But not anymore. If Belle wanted distance, she could have it. If Declan wanted silence, he could have it too. But they'd also have to live without my support, my loyalty, my name on any damn mortgage. Because I was done. Done being the backup plan. Done being invisible. And for the first time, I actually believed myself. I spent the next day in bed, not from the bruises, though those were bad, but from the exhaustion, emotional, bone deep. I didn't cry, not once. I just laid there staring at the ceiling like it might explain how the hell I got here. But I already knew. It didn't start with Declan, or Belle's text, or even the slap. It started years ago, with little things. Things I didn't name at the time, like the way my mom lit up when Belle walked in a room, even when Belle had done absolutely nothing but show up. Or how, when I graduated from college with honors, the whole family barely got through dinner before someone brought up Belle's new job folding sweaters at that downtown boutique. "She's got such an eye for fashion," my aunt had said. Real potential. No one asked about my degree. No one asked about my internships or the 2 job offers I'd landed before I even walked the stage. I always told myself it didn't matter, that I wasn't doing it for praise, that being the quiet, dependable one was fine, as long as I stayed useful, and that's the part that stung now. How I'd spent my entire life being useful. When mom needed help sorting her finances after dad died, who stepped in and sat with her through every bank statement? Me. When Belle couldn't make rent 3 times in 1 year, who wired the money without question? Me. I was the reliable one, the solid one, the one who didn't need anything. Or at least that's what they told themselves. Because I never made a scene, never demanded a spotlight, never said, "Hey, what about me?" I'd convinced myself I didn't want one. But sitting there with a cracked rib and a black eye, I realized I'd spent so long trying to keep the peace that I'd let them convince me I didn't even deserve a voice. I thought about the way Belle laughed when she called me uptight or too sensitive if I brought up how much I helped her, or how mom once said, "Camille's fine, she always lands on her feet," as if resilience was some kind of immunity to hurt. They treated my independence like a reason to ignore me. And the truth was, it worked. I stopped asking for anything. I stopped even thinking about what I needed, because I was too busy plugging the holes they left behind. Until now. Now, I was done. Done pretending that being the strong one meant being the invisible one. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and opened a blank notebook. At the top of the first page, I wrote one sentence in thick black pen: I am not responsible for other people's comfort. It was time to unlearn everything they taught me. Time to rewrite every rule that told me I was only valuable when I was sacrificing something. Because I wasn't their safety net anymore, and I sure as hell wasn't their afterthought. It started with Belle's nervous laugh. "This is just a formality, Cam," she said, sliding the folder across my kitchen table. "You know you're the only one who can help us pull this off." I stared down at the document. Loan terms, pre-approval details, signature lines. My name already typed neatly next to Declan's. She sat across from me, Declan behind her, his hand on the back of her chair like he was already guarding territory that wasn't his. I remember thinking it felt wrong from the beginning, but Belle's voice was all sugar. "You're the stable one," she said. "The bank basically loves you, and it's not like you'd ever let us drown, right?" I laughed nervously. "Is that supposed to be comforting?" She rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. Declan chuckled without humor. "We're just asking you to co-sign. We're not asking for your kidney." That was 5 months ago, and at first it felt like I'd done the right thing. Like maybe this was how you prove your love to your family, by showing up when it counts. I told myself I was helping Belle build her future, that it was only temporary, but temporary turned into endless late-night phone calls and urgent texts. "Hey Cam, Declan's credit is still getting flagged. Can you call the lender and explain? Cam, the roof inspection came back high. Can you front the cash until my next paycheck clears? Cam, can you just handle it? You know this stuff better than we do." Bit by bit, they stopped asking. They just assumed, and I let it happen. I started to notice how they talked to me, or didn't. When I brought up the mounting fees, Declan waved me off. "Relax, you're acting like we're stealing from you." When I asked Belle if she'd looked at her payment schedule, she sighed. "You always find a reason to stress. Can you just be supportive for once?" Supportive. That word had started to feel like a leash, because somehow I was the one scheduling inspections. I was the one meeting with their broker. I was the one running credit reports and calculating escrow, while they picked out backsplash tile and posted Instagram stories about building our forever. And every time I hesitated, every time I so much as paused, they made me feel like the bad guy. One night, I sat in my car outside their new place, waiting for the locksmith they forgot to schedule. My phone buzzed. "Belle, can you Venmo $75 for the delivery guy? We're tapped out till Friday." I stared at that message like it was written in another language. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't their sister. I was their safety net. My reliability wasn't respected. It was expected. My kindness wasn't appreciated. It was consumed. I wasn't family. I was a financial asset, dressed up in emotional guilt and family loyalty. And deep down, I think they always knew I wouldn't walk away. But that version of me was already gone. The part of me that said yes out of love, she had finally learned what it felt like to be used. The argument started with napkins. Specifically, Declan's meltdown over them not being textured linen like some Pinterest board had shown. Belle sat beside him at the dining table with her laptop open and a spreadsheet pulled up. I'd only come over because she asked me to help go over the wedding budget. That's what she said. What she meant was, come fix the mess we made again. "We're already over budget on the venue," I pointed out, scrolling through her Excel sheet. "If you cut the charger plates and the gift bags, you could reallocate—" "Oh my God, Camille," Declan interrupted, throwing his pen across the table. "Every time we try to make this wedding special, you come in acting like the money police." I paused. "I'm just trying to help you not go bankrupt over foil-stamped menus." He stood suddenly, eyes narrowing. "You think just because you co-signed the mortgage, you get to tell us what kind of wedding we can have?" Belle didn't say a word. She didn't even look up from her screen. I said carefully, "if you're behind on 3 credit cards, maybe don't throw a tantrum over napkin texture." Declan stepped closer. "Oh, here we go again," he snapped. "Little Miss Perfect with her paid-off car and her 6-figure job, acting like she's better than the rest of us." "That's not what I said." "But that's what you mean, right?" he hissed. "You always talk like you're so damn responsible, but you're just bitter. You don't have anyone, and you don't know what it's like to build something with someone else." That hit me harder than I wanted to admit, but I didn't flinch. "I came here to help, Declan. That's it." He laughed, cold and hard. "Number you came here to control." And before I could respond, he shoved me. It wasn't a gentle push. I stumbled hard, my hips slamming into the counter. The edge dug into my ribs as I tried to brace myself. I turned, eyes wide, but he was already coming at me again. Then his hand cracked across my face. Everything blurred. A ringing filled my ears as I dropped to the kitchen floor, one hand catching the corner of the cabinet on the way down. I blinked at the tile beneath me, the same tile I'd helped Belle pick out when they moved in. Declan's breathing was heavy, but he didn't speak. And Belle? She just stood there, not moving, not screaming, not even shocked. She watched it happen like it was a movie she didn't care for. I lay there waiting for her to come over, to check on me, to say anything at all. But she didn't. And that silence, that was the real blow. Long after Declan stomped out and slammed the door behind him, Belle never spoke. She stepped over me, picked up a dish towel, and walked out of the room like she was clearing the table after dinner. I stayed on that floor a little longer, staring at the ceiling, knowing deep down, that was the last time I'd ever beg her to see me. Mariah came over the morning after. She didn't knock, just walked in like she always did, holding a grocery bag with Gatorade, crackers, and that one brand of gummy bears she knew I hoarded when I was stressed. I was sitting on the couch, my face still swollen, my ribs aching. She sat down next to me, quiet at first, then pulled me into a hug I didn't know I needed until I broke into it. "Camille," she said softly, "we're going to the police. Today." I shook my head before the word no even left my mouth. "I can't," I whispered. I can't make it real." "It is real," she said, pulling back to look me in the eye. "It was real the moment he put his hands on you." And Belle just stood there. That stung. More than the bruise on my cheek, more than the cracked rib. The part that throbbed the most was the part that used to believe Belle would always pick me. That version of me felt so far away now, like someone I used to know but couldn't quite remember. I didn't go to the police. Not that day. But I did open my laptop. Mariah sat with me as I logged into the mortgage portal I had helped Declan and Belle set up months ago, back when they needed me, back when I still thought helping them was a form of love. I had co-signed because Declan's credit was shot and Belle didn't qualify a loan. They needed my name, my financial record, my steady income. They had sold it to me as a favor, as something temporary. It was never temporary. I stared at the approval summary, the pre-authorization still in effect, but not yet finalized. They hadn't closed yet. I still had time. "What are you thinking?" Mariah asked. I leaned back in my chair. "I'm thinking, if they want me out of their life, I'm going." She nodded. "So, you're pulling out?" I hesitated. "It's going to wreck their deal." "And what did they do to you?" she asked, not unkindly. "Think they hesitated when he shoved you? Or when she just stood there?" That was all I needed. I clicked into the section marked Withdraw Application. My heart was pounding, but my hands didn't shake. I followed every prompt, confirmed every checkbox, and when the final confirmation screen came up, I paused only once. This is the end of it, I thought. The last tether. I hit confirm. A small banner popped up on the screen. "Application successfully withdrawn. A representative will contact you to finalize cancellation." I sat there staring at the screen until Mariah's hand closed over mine. "You did the right thing," she said. "I finally chose myself," I replied. And I meant it. No more sisterly guilt. No more saving people who saw me as convenient. No more being used and forgotten. That day, I didn't just cancel a mortgage. I canceled my role in their version of my life. And for the first time, I felt free. The call came at 7:43 a.m. I hadn't even poured my coffee yet. My phone lit up with Declan's name, all caps, like a threat. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times. Then I answered, placing the mug down before I could throw it. "You really did it," he hissed. No hello, no pause. "You actually did it." "Good morning to you too," I said flatly. "Don't play dumb with me, Camille. You think this is funny? You think you get to ruin people's lives because you're bitter?" I didn't respond right away. I let the silence stretch, let him sit in it. When he spoke again, his voice was more panicked than angry. "You've screwed everything. The deal's dead. The seller's walking. Do you even understand what you've done?" "I did what Belle asked," I said calmly. "She wanted distance. She's got it." "You didn't just back out," he snapped. "You blindsided us. We were counting on that house. Do you know how hard Belle's been crying?" That one almost made me flinch. Almost. "She watched you hit me and did nothing," I said. So if she's crying now, that's on her. Not me. His breath caught, like he wasn't expecting me to say it out loud. I gave him no space to recover. You both made your choices. I'm just following your lead. You're unbelievable, he spat. No, I said. I'm finally believable. That's the difference. I ended the call before he could respond. Exactly 24 hours later, they were at my door. I heard them before I saw them, angry fists pounding against the wood, voices rising through the hallway. Camille! Belle's voice cracked through the air. We just need to talk. I didn't move. We know you're in there, Declan growled. Open the damn door. I stood in the living room, arms crossed, watching the door like it was a television screen. There was nothing left they could say that I hadn't already lived through. Camille, Belle begged, please, just undo it. We can't afford to lose this house. I thought about the nights I stayed up fixing Declan's credit report, the calls to banks, the cash I fronted, the fact that none of it had ever been enough to make me feel like more than an accessory in their lives. I walked to the door, slowly. Then I clicked the lock from the inside, loud enough that they'd hear it, and walked away. The knocking stopped. Then soft footsteps. A whisper I couldn't make out. And silence. When I looked through the peephole, they were gone. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clean, weightless. It wasn't revenge, it was closure. They could scream, beg, twist the story however they wanted, but they would never get another ounce of me. Not now, not ever again. I knew it was coming the moment I saw the envelope. It wasn't a bill. It wasn't junk mail. It was certified, official, like something heavy enough to make my stomach turn before I even opened it. Inside was a petition for a restraining order, filed by Belle. The woman who stood by while her fiancé hit me was now claiming I was a danger to her. She wrote that I had a history of obsessive behavior, that I had inserted myself aggressively into her personal life, and had made verbal threats after being removed from her financial agreements. She even cited a history of family instability. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time after that, just holding the paper in my hands. I wasn't angry. I was tired, not surprised, not even hurt, just tired. That night, I called Aya, an attorney I'd once worked with through a nonprofit project at my company. She was sharp, relentless, and had a zero-tolerance policy for bullshit. They're trying to flip the narrative, she said after skimming the documents. But don't worry, we're going to burn this down with facts. The court date was 2 weeks later. I hadn't seen Belle or Declan since the day they stood outside my door, begging. But there they were now, seated on the opposite side of the courtroom, perfectly dressed, perfectly rehearsed. Belle looked nervous, her hands twisting around her wrists. But Declan looked smug, like he thought this was going to be easy. Aya stood confidently when it was our turn. Your Honor, she began, we're not just denying these allegations. We're disproving them. She presented text messages, Belle's own words asking for Camille's help, screenshots of Declan's threatening voicemails after the mortgage withdrawal, and most damning of all, the police report Camille had quietly filed after the assault, backed by medical documentation from the ER. Belle's lawyer stammered something about miscommunication and emotional escalation, but the judge didn't buy it. I don't see any evidence, he said, flipping through the file, that Ms. Camille Reynolds has posed a threat to anyone in this room. What I do see is a concerning pattern of financial and emotional exploitation. He looked at Belle and Declan like they were ants under a microscope. Petition denied. Just like that, it was over. As we gathered our things, Belle stood up and made a weak attempt to speak. Camille, can we talk outside for a second? I didn't even look at her. Aya stepped between us. No, she's done. We walked out of that courtroom into the bright afternoon light. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt the weight of their silence finally lift off my back. No more pretending, no more hoping. Just me, free. Outside, I saw Belle lingering near the courthouse steps. Her eyes were glassy. Camille, wait, she called. I paused, then turned, just enough to meet her gaze. And then I kept walking, not fast, not angry, just steady. She wasn't my sister anymore, not really. I wasn't hers. And I didn't owe her one more word. It started with a voicemail from my mother. Her tone wasn't angry, it was worse than that. Sweet, syrupy, soaked in guilt. Camille, sweetheart, I know things have gotten tense, but your sister is still family. We don't throw each other away. You need to talk to Belle. Fix this before it goes too far. Then a call from Aunt Linda. Then another one, and another. Same message. Be the bigger person. She's your only sister. Don't let this become permanent. Permanent. That was the word that echoed in my head. They said it like permanence was the worst case scenario. But to me, it sounded like peace. I didn't answer any of them. I just opened my phone, blocked each number one by one. No announcement, no explanation. I was done. A few days later, I opened my mailbox to find a thick envelope, hand-addressed in Belle's careful cursive. I knew what it was before I even touched it. She still couldn't help herself. Still believed a final word, written in her prettiest handwriting, might be enough to pull me back in. I didn't even open it. I ripped it in half and tossed it straight into the trash. Not with anger, not with ceremony. Just quiet finality. I thought I'd feel something when I did it. Sadness, maybe, or relief. But honestly, I felt nothing at all. And that was the most freeing part. A week after that, I bought a cactus. Not a big one. Just a small, scrappy thing from the corner table at the plant shop down the street. The kind that doesn't beg for water, doesn't wilt when ignored, just keeps growing, stubborn and quiet. I placed it on my windowsill and forgot about it for a while. Then one morning, I noticed a single pink flower blooming at the top. It caught me off guard, so small and bright and unapologetic. It didn't need permission to grow, neither did I. I stopped checking Belle's social media, stopped wondering if she'd moved on, if the wedding ever happened, if Declan was still around. It didn't matter. Her life was no longer tethered to mine. My mother tried again once, a final voicemail that ended with, "I just don't want you to live with regret." I smiled when I heard it, because regret was the one thing I didn't feel. I felt clarity, stillness, control. No more playing the peacekeeper. No more being the background sister, the built-in financial plan, the emotional landfill where everyone dumped their mess. I was building something new now, something mine. My apartment was quiet but not lonely. My days were still but not small. And every time I walked past that cactus, blooming like it didn't care what anyone thought, it reminded me, I didn't need to be part of their story, because I was finally writing my own. 1 year later, I stood at the front of a packed conference room, a laser pointer in one hand and a room full of eyes on me. The presentation slide behind me read, North American launch, Phase 1 success. It wasn't nerves I felt, it was certainty. I clicked to the final slide, smiled, and finished with, and this time next quarter, we'll be global. The applause was warm, confident, earned. I stepped down to meet the team leads and execs who'd flown in to see the rollout, shaking hands, answering questions, nodding along to praise I didn't need anyone to translate for me anymore. For once, I didn't shrink myself when they complimented my strategy or my leadership. I knew I was good at what I did, and I wasn't going to apologize for it anymore. Afterward, I walked out into the bright autumn air and called Mariah. "How'd it go?" she asked. I smiled. Nailed it. They're already talking about expanding the role. "Good," she said. "About time they see what I've been seeing for years." We made plans to meet later for dinner. Our monthly girls' night turned sacred ritual, and I hung up, pocketing my phone as I walked down the street toward the ceramics studio. I had started taking classes there right after the courtroom mess. Something about molding clay with my hands, smoothing imperfections, shaping what felt like chaos into something whole. It clicked with me in a way nothing else had. The instructor greeted me by name. I rolled up my sleeves and lost myself in the rhythm of the wheel. Later that week, I hosted my first Friendsgiving. Mariah came early, along with my coworker Sam and his partner Jake, who brought homemade cranberry sauce and a crooked but delicious pie. I looked around my small but bright apartment, candles flickering on the windowsill, wine glasses clinking, laughter rolling across the room, and thought, this is what family is supposed to feel like. Not guilt, not manipulation, just people choosing each other. At one point, Mariah leaned over and whispered, "Look at you. Hosting, laughing, it's like watching someone come back to life." I didn't know I'd ever left, but I nodded anyway. After everyone left and the apartment went quiet again, I sat alone on the couch, a half glass of wine in hand, the dishes stacked neatly in the sink. I glanced toward the window. The cactus I bought a year ago still sat on the sill. The flower had long since wilted. But now, a new bud had started forming at the edge of one arm, silent, stubborn, growing again, like me. I thought about Belle for a second, not with longing, not with regret, just like you might think of someone you used to know once, I hadn't looked her up in months. I didn't need to. That door was shut. I had built something better. Not perfect, not without cracks, but strong, real, mine. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid to take up space in it.